question number 9 to 12. All right. So we're going to be writing exponential functions. Okay. So the general form for exponential function is y equal a parentheses r to the exponent t. All right. So y equal art. Okay. Where a represents your initial value. All right. R represents your rate. And t is your time. Okay. So when you're doing this question, guys, we're going to try to represent this information that's given here using this form, okay? So every time you do this, you're going to write what each of these values will represent, okay? So in this case, it says an element with mass 590 grams decays by 19.5% per minute. How much of the element is remaining after 15 minutes to the nearest tenth of a gram, okay? So in this case, this 990 grams is the amount that we started with before we started to decay, okay? Because that's the amount that we started with, that would represent your initial value, okay? So your initial value, all right, or your A is going to be 590, okay? Then we're going to try to identify our rate, okay? So it says that it decays by 19.5%, all right, per minute. Because this is the percentage, all right, of change per minute, okay? This would represent your rate, all right? So again, guys, that previous number would represent your rate. So my rate or my R is equal to 19.5%. However, guys, your rate is not a percentage. Your rate needs to be a decimal, all right? So we're going to convert this to a percentage by moving the decimal point 2 times to the left, all right? So 2 times to the left like Beyonce, all right? So your rate is actually 0.195. Can we move the decimal point 2 times to the left, okay? So then now we're going to identify our time. So it says how much of the element is remaining after 15 minutes. That 15 minutes is the time of change. So because it says after 15 minutes, that's the time that's changing. That's the time, okay? So your time or your T is equal to 15, all right? So again, you leave it as just a 15. So all I have to do now is just plug them in to this general form, okay? So we're going to have y equal, what is your A? So again, my A, all right, would be my initial value. And I said my initial value was $590 or 590 grams, okay? So now we're going to write our rate. So again, we saw that our rate was 19%. However, we did not want a percentage. We wanted we did not want a percentage, we wanted a decimal. So the decimal version of this percentage is 0.195. However, guys, we need to state the fact that it's decaying, all right? So because it's decaying, that means that you're decreasing, you're losing, you're getting smaller, all right? But for you to get smaller, you need to have a starting point. That starting point will be 1. So again, it will be either a growth or a decay. Because it's a decay, that means that we're starting at 1 and we're going to subtract our rate, okay? So let's subtract that rate. We're going to do 1 minus my rate, and my rate is 0.195. So I'm going to subtract 0.195, okay? So I'm going to put that in my calculator. 1 minus 0.195, all right, I get 0.805. So that's 0.805, all right? And that is what we will put inside the parentheses for our rate, okay? So this number goes right here, 0.805. Okay, and then my T, which represents my time. So again, my time would go right here. My time is 15. Okay, So all I have to do now, guys, is plug this into my calculator to get a number, okay? So when I plug that into my calculator, I would type it exactly as I see it, 590 parentheses, okay? And inside we put 0.805, okay? And then to the exponent, all right, of 50, okay? So we got 22.792, but it says round to the nearest tenth of a gram. So when you're doing to the nearest tenth is 1 decimal place, okay? So that means you're gonna look at the second number after the decimal point, okay? If that number is 5 or larger, this 7 will go up once. Because it was 5 or larger, that 7 is gonna go up to an 8, all right? So again, 22.8 would be my result. So again, 22.8 is my result, okay? So let's do the next question, all right? So it says $7,100 is placed in an account with an annual interest rate of 7.75%. How much will be in the account after 30 years to the nearest cent, okay? So again, nearest tenth was 1 decimal place, okay? Nearest cent, however, is 2 decimal places, all right? So make sure you know the difference between that, okay? So let's identify what our initial value or rate and time is, okay? So our initial value, all right, is the amount we started with, okay? Or my A. So it says 7,100 was placed in the account, all right? That's the amount that we put in the account before it gained any interest, all right? So because that's the amount that was in the account, that would represent your initial, okay? So now we're gonna identify what would represent your rate or your R, okay? So your rate or your R can be represented using this interest gain, all right? So it said it had an annual interest rate of 7.5%. It literally says rate of 7.5%. All right, so that's that rate, okay? However, guys, you do not want a percentage. We want a decimal. So what we're gonna do is just move the decimal point 2 times to the left like Beyonce, all right? So we would end up having, so you put 0 as a placeholder, so 0.0775. So again, this would be 0.0775, okay? So now we're gonna identify the time. So time or your T is this time change after a period, all right? So this is your time. So again, that's your time, all right? So we're gonna write our time being 30 because that's the amount that it changed after a period of time, okay? So let's put it into our general form. So we're gonna have y equal, all right, some initial value, all right, or rate change, all right, over some period of time, okay? So we know our initial is 7,100, all right? It said that our rate was 0.075. However, we need to look at the change. Because it's an interest, that means it's money that you're gaining, all right? So because you're gaining, that means you're gonna grow, okay? Grow means that we're adding our rate, not subtracting, okay? So I'm going to do 1 plus this rate of 0.0775, all right? And I would get 1.0775. Again, you can put that in your calculator if you would like, okay? So that's what is gonna be put inside of this parentheses. So again, that's what's gonna go right here, 1.0775, okay? And then right here represents our time. So again, our time for this question is 30. So that goes right here. So all I have to do now, guys, is just plug this into our calculator. So let's put this in our calculator, guys, okay? You type it in exactly as you see it. So 7,100 parentheses, okay? And inside, we're gonna put 1.0775, all right? To the exponent of 30, okay? So I got 66,646.402. All right. However, it says round to the nearest cent. Okay, when you're rounding to the nearest cent, you need to look at the third number after the decimal point. Okay, so we need to look at the third number after decimal point. All right, which is this 2. If it's 5 or larger, this 0 will go up once. Because it is not 5 or larger, everything including that 2 and after will go away, and our result will be 66,646, okay, 0.40. All right. So again, guys, that would be my result. Okay. So again, 66,646.40, but it needs to be to the nearest cent, which is 2 decimal place. All right. If you're doing to the nearest whole number, you will look at the number immediately after the decimal point. If it's 5 or larger, it will go up once. If it's not 5 or larger, everything goes away. All right. So again, guys, just like that.